The night air in Sturgis smelled like gasoline and freedom. Dalton Blackwood sat alone on the edge of the rally grounds, his boots resting on the foot pegs of a machine that had outlived most men. The Harley-Davidson Electroglide gleamed under the South Dakota Star's chrome, catching moonlight like captured lightning. 60 years of American steel, 60 years of stories etched into every scratch, every dent, every mile. Around him, the 2024 Sturgis Motorcycle Rally was winding down. 200,000 bikers had descended on this small town, turning it into a roaring ocean of leather and thunder. But now past midnight, the ocean had calmed. The bars were closing, the campfires were dying, the last stragglers stumbled toward their tents drunk on beer and belonging. Dalton preferred it this way. The quiet after the storm. He was 62 years old, though his body told a different story. Sun-weathered skin pulled tight over a frame that had spent 4 decades on the road. Silver hair fell past his shoulders, pulled back in a ponytail that had gone from rebellious to distinguished somewhere along the way. His arms were canvases of ink eagles and skulls, roses, and daggers, names of brothers who'd ridden off into the sunset and never came back. On his left hand, he wore a single ring, heavy silver stamped with the winged death's head, the symbol of the Hell Angels Motorcycle Club. He'd earned that ring in Oakland, California in 1978 when he was just 16 years old, and had nothing but anger and a dream of escape. Now he was the president of the Northern Nevada chapter. Duke, they called him, a name given by men who respected the way he rode and the way he led, men who would follow him into fire if he asked. But tonight, Duke Blackwood sat alone with a ghost. The Harley beneath him wasn't just a motorcycle, it was the last physical connection to a man he'd never known, a man named Warren Blackwood, his father. Dalton ran his calloused hand over the fuel tank, tracing the curves like a blind man reading Braille. The paint was original, deep midnight blue, with silver pinstripes, faded now, but still proud. Raymond Iron Horse Gallagher had given him this bike in 2016, 3 days before cancer took him. "This was your old man's ride, kid," Iron Horse had said, his voice already thin and distant. "Kept it all these years. Figured you should have it." Dalton had stared at the old man, confusion mixing with grief. "How did you I got my ways." Iron Horse had smiled that crooked grin that had terrified rivals and comforted brothers for 50 years. "Your daddy was a good man, Duke. Better than most. Remember that." Those were the last words Iron Horse ever spoke to him. Dalton had tried to learn more, tried to dig into the past, but the trail was cold. Warren Blackwood, Detroit police officer, killed in the line of duty 1965. That's all the record said. Mother Evelyn Blackwood, deceased 1970. No siblings, no extended family. Just a kid named Dalton bounced through 9 foster homes before a grizzled biker took pity on him and gave him a real home. The Hell Angels became his family. The road became his home. The past became something you didn't talk about. Until tonight. Dalton heard the footsteps before he saw her. Soft, hesitant. Not the confident stride of a biker or the stumbling shuffle of a drunk. These were the careful steps of someone who didn't belong here. Someone who was afraid but desperate enough to keep walking anyway. He turned his head slowly, hand instinctively moving toward the knife on his belt. She emerged from the shadows like something out of a fever dream. An old woman, 75, maybe 80, impossibly thin, her clothes hanging off her frame like they'd been bought for someone twice her size. A threadbare coat that might have been brown, once now faded to the color of dirt. Jeans with holes in the knees, not the fashionable kind, but the kind that came from years of wear and poverty. Shoes held together with duct tape. But it was her eyes that stopped Dalton cold. Blue, piercing blue, the exact shade he saw every morning in the mirror. She stood 10 feet away, trembling. Not from cold, the August night was warm, but from something deeper. Fear, maybe, or courage wearing the mask of fear. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The distant sound of a lonely harmonica drifted across the rally grounds. Someone was playing an old blues tune, something about roads and regret. It fit the moment perfectly. The woman opened her mouth, closed. It tried again. When the words finally came, they were barely a whisper, carried on the South Dakota wind like a prayer. "You're in danger." Dalton's jaw tightened. He'd heard a lot of crazy things at rallies, drunk prophecies, religious warnings, con artists trying to scare up protection money. He started to turn away. "Call me Mom." The world stopped. Those three words, simple, impossible, devastating, hit Dalton like a freight train. His hand froze on the handlebar. His breath caught in his throat. Time itself seemed to stumble and fall. He looked at her again, really looked this time. The shape of her face beneath the weathered skin, the way she stood slightly favoring her left leg, the desperate hope in those blue eyes mixed with terror, and something that looked like love worn down to its last thread. "What did you say?" His voice came out rough, dangerous. The woman took a step closer, her whole body shaking now. "My name is Evelyn Blackwood. I'm your mother, and you're in terrible danger." Dalton stood up so fast the Harley rocked on his kickstand. He was a big man, 6'2" and 220, and he used every inch of it now to intimidate. "My mother's dead. Died in 1970. Says so right in my foster care paperwork." "I know what it says." Her voice was stronger now, steadier. "I wrote the letter myself. Made them promise to tell you I was dead. It was the only way to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" "From the men who killed your father." The harmonica player had stopped. The night had gone completely silent, as if the universe itself was leaning in to listen. Dalton felt something crack inside his chest. 59 years of carefully maintained walls suddenly developing fissures. "You're lying," he said, but even he could hear the doubt in his voice. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket, slowly, carefully aware that sudden movements around bikers could be dangerous. She pulled out a photograph, bent and faded, protected in a clear plastic sleeve. She held it out. Dalton didn't want to take it. Taking it meant accepting the possibility. Accepting the possibility meant facing a truth he'd buried under decades of leather and chrome and brotherhood. But his hand moved anyway. The photograph was old. The colors shifted toward yellow and red the way pictures from the 60s always looked. It showed a young couple, maybe mid-20s. The man wore a police uniform, dark and crisp, with a bright smile that suggested he still believed in justice. The woman next to him was beautiful dark hair, blue eyes, a sundress covered in flowers. Between them, sitting on the man's shoulders with chubby hands gripping his father's hair, was a little boy, maybe 3 years old, laughing. Dalton's hands started shaking. "That was taken in Detroit, June 1965, Evelyn said softly. 2 months before everything fell apart. You were 3.5. You just learned to ride a tricycle. You were so proud." "Anyone could have an old photograph," Dalton said, but his voice had lost its edge. "You had a birthmark," Evelyn continued, her words coming faster now, desperate to be believed. "Shaped like a crescent moon right below your left shoulder blade. You hated when I kissed it. Said it tickled." Dalton's blood ran cold. No one knew about that birthmark. It was hidden under the tattoo of an eagle he'd gotten when he was 17. The artist had incorporated it into the design, turning the crescent into the curve of a wing. No one knew, except a mother who had bathed her child. "Why now?" The words came out broken. 59 years. Why show up now? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm dying. Lung cancer stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 2 months, probably less. And because the man who killed your father just got out of prison. And he's looking for you." "Why would he be looking for me?" "Because your father hid something. Evidence, something that could destroy what's left of his organization. And they think you know where it is." "I don't know anything about my father. Iron Horse gave me his bike, and that's all I—" Dalton stopped mid-sentence. The bike. Evelyn saw the realization hit him. She nodded slowly. Warren was a smart man. Brave but smart. If he hid something, he'd put it somewhere safe. Somewhere it could be found by the right person at the right time. Dalton turned to look at the Harley, seeing it with new eyes. 60 years old. Original parts never fully restored, never completely torn down. Just maintained. Preserved. Passed from Iron Horse to him with a cryptic message about his father being a good man. "What did he hide?" "The truth," Evelyn said. "About corruption that went all the way to the top. About murders made to look like accidents. About a system that was supposed to protect people but instead protected monsters." She took another step closer. They were only 5 feet apart now, close enough that Dalton could see the lines of suffering etched into her face, the gray in her hair, the way her coat couldn't quite hide how thin she'd become. "I know you don't remember me," she said, and now the tears were falling freely. I know I'm a stranger to you. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. But please, Dalton, please listen. Please let me protect you one more time before I die. A name, she called him Dalton. He'd been Duke for so long he sometimes forgot his real name. But hearing it from her lips that had once kissed scraped knees and sung lullabies, something inside him shattered. How do I know you're real? He asked quietly. How do I know this isn't some con, some setup? Evelyn reached up with a trembling hand and touched his face. Her fingers were cold and rough, the hands of someone who'd worked hard jobs for low pay, but the gesture was infinitely gentle. You have your father's jaw, she whispered, and his stubborn streak. But your eyes, those are mine. I see them every morning in the mirror and remember the baby I held, the boy I lost, the man I've watched from the shadows. Watched. Every rally you've been to in the last 20 years. Every time your chapter rolled through a town, I found a way to be there. In the crowd behind a window. Just watching. Making sure you were alive. Making sure you were okay. Dalton felt something wet on his cheek and realized with shock that he was crying. He hadn't cried since Iron Horse died. Before that, he couldn't remember the last time. Bikers didn't cry. Leaders didn't cry. Duke Blackwood didn't cry. But Dalton Blackwood, the 3-year-old boy who'd lost his mother, was crying. Why didn't you ever approach me? His voice broke. Why just watch? Shame, Evelyn said simply. Cowardice. Fear that you'd hate me. Fear that I'd bring danger to your door. 1,000 reasons and none of them good enough. I was a coward, Dalton. I chose my safety over being your mother, and I've hated myself for it every single day. Behind them, someone started up a motorcycle. The engine roar broke the spell for a moment, reminding them that they were standing in the middle of a rally ground, having this impossible conversation under the stars. We can't talk here, Dalton said, his training as a club president kicking in. Too exposed, too many ears. I have a motel room, Evelyn said. 20 miles from here, the Sunset Motor Lodge, room 12. That's not safe either. If someone's really looking for me, they'll be watching the obvious places. Then where? Dalton thought for a moment. His chapter had a clubhouse in Rapid City, but that was 2 hours away. They had connections in Sturgis safe houses, friendly bars, but bringing a stranger to any of them would raise questions. Then he remembered. There's an old mechanic shop, he said, 10 miles north on Route 34. Been closed for 15 years. Owner died, family never sold it. We use it sometimes when we need privacy. How do I get there? You don't. I'll take you. Evelyn looked at the Harley, then down at herself. I haven't been on a motorcycle since... She stopped. Since Dad died. She nodded. It's like riding a bike, Dalton said. And despite everything, there was the ghost of a smile. You never forget. He threw his leg over the Harley and kicked it to life. The engine rumbled deep and powerful, the sound of American steel and defiance. He felt it in his chest, in his bones, in his blood. This machine had belonged to his father. Had carried Warren Blackwood through the streets of Detroit when the world was young and justice seemed possible. Had sat in storage for decades waiting. Had passed through Iron Horse's hands to his. And now it would carry both him and his mother through the South Dakota night. Evelyn climbed on behind him, awkward and uncertain. Her arms wrapped around his waist. Thin and fragile, he could feel her shaking. Hold on tight, he said. I'm sorry, she whispered into his back, for everything. I'm so sorry. Dalton didn't answer. He couldn't. The words were stuck somewhere between his heart and his throat. He released the clutch and the Harley rolled forward, picking up speed as they left the rally grounds behind. The wind picked up warm and constant, carrying the smell of prairie grass and distant rain. They rode through the darkness. A 62-year-old biker and the ghost of his past heading toward a conversation 59 years overdue. Behind them, unnoticed in the shadows of the rally ground, a man in a black sedan lowered his binoculars. He pulled out his phone and made a call. It's Marcus, he said when the line connected. I found him, and she made contact just like you said she would. A pause. Yeah, I'll follow them. But boss, you sure you want me to wait? I got a clear shot right now. Another pause, longer this time. Understood. We wait for the tape, then we finish this. He hung up and started his engine. The hunt had begun. The mechanic shop sat off the highway like a forgotten tombstone. Paint peeled down to bare wood windows, dark and empty. A rusted sign still hung above the door, Hank's Honest Repairs. Below it, someone had spray painted, "Closed forever," in red letters that dripped like blood. Dalton killed the engine and they sat in silence for a moment. The tick, tick, tick of cooling metal was the only sound. "This is it?" Evelyn asked. "It's private, that's what matters." He helped her off the bike. Her legs were stiff from the ride, her movements slow and pained. Up close in the moonlight, he could see just how sick she was. The cancer wasn't just in her lungs, it was in her bones, her blood, her future. She was dying. That much was clear. The question was whether he'd let himself care. Dalton pulled a key from his pocket, every member of his chapter had one, and unlocked the side door. Inside the shop was exactly as they'd left it. A few chairs, a card table, some old motorcycle parts scattered around. They used this place for meetings that couldn't happen at the clubhouse. Sensitive discussions, private business. Now it would host the most private business of Dalton's life. He found an old lantern, lit it with a Zippo. Warm light pushed back the darkness, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. Evelyn sat down in one of the chairs, moving like every bone hurt. Probably did. "Talk," Dalton said. He remained standing, arms crossed, defensive posture, protective. "Start from the beginning. Tell me everything." Evelyn took a shaky breath. "Your father was a good cop," she began. "Maybe the last honest cop in Detroit by 1965. Everyone else had been bought or scared into silence, but not Warren. He believed in the badge, believed it meant something." "What happened?" "He got assigned to a case. Warehouse robbery supposed to be routine. But when he started digging, he found connections. The warehouse was owned by a shell company. The shell company was owned by another company. And that company was owned by the Duca family. Mafia. The biggest operation in Detroit. Salvatore Duca ran everything. Drugs, prostitution, gambling, protection, rackets. But he was smart, kept his hands clean, worked through intermediaries. Nobody could touch him. Until Dad found something." "What?" Evelyn nodded. "Warren discovered that certain cops were on the payroll, and not just beat cops, captains, lieutenants, even a deputy chief. They were running interference, making evidence disappear, warning the Ducas about raids before they happened. And he reported it. He tried, went to the DA's office, but the assistant DA he talked to," she paused, "turned out he was dirty too. Within 24 hours, Warren knew he'd made a mistake. They came after him. They came to our house, 3 men, told Warren to forget what he'd found. Told him to drop it or there would be consequences." Evelyn's hands were trembling now, reliving the memory. "Warren refused. Said he'd taken an oath. Said some things were more important than safety. They left, but they warned him, 'We know where you live. We know you have a wife and a son. Think about them.' So what did he do? He got smart, started wearing a wire, recorded conversations with other cops, with informants, with anyone who'd talk. Spent 3 months gathering evidence. And then one night in August 1965, he got the recording he needed. What was on it? Salvatore Duca himself meeting with 5 high-ranking Detroit officials, planning 3 murders, 2 judges who wouldn't play ball, and a federal prosecutor who was getting too close. The recording had dates, methods, everything. It was enough to bring down the entire network. Dalton felt a chill run down his spine. Let me guess, they found out. Warren was going to turn the evidence over to the FBI the next morning. He'd arranged a meeting, had everything ready. But that night, her voice broke. That night, they killed him. Made it look like a robbery gone wrong. Shot him outside a convenience store, took his wallet, left him bleeding in the parking lot. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. Silence filled the old mechanic shop. Outside, a coyote howled in the distance. I'm sorry, Dalton said quietly. It was inadequate, but it was all he had. The next day, Evelyn continued, 2 men came to my door. Said they knew Warren had made recordings. Said they wanted them back. Said if I gave them up, they'd leave me alone. But you didn't have them. No, Warren never told me where he hid the evidence. Said it was safer if I didn't know. So I told them the truth. And they didn't believe you. Evelyn looked up at Dalton, her blue eyes haunted. They said they'd give me 24 hours to find the recordings. And if I didn't, they'd kill you. You were 3 years old, Dalton. 3 years old. And they threatened to put a bullet in your head. Dalton's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. I had a choice, Evelyn said. I could stay and fight and watch you die, or I could disappear, make them think I was so broken, so scared that I wasn't a threat anymore. So I went to a lawyer, a good man Warren had trusted. I signed papers putting you into state custody. I wrote letters saying I was mentally unfit to be a mother. And then I vanished. You abandoned me to save me. Yes. And the death certificate, the lawyer helped with that too. Faked my death in 1970, made it official. I became Clara Whitmore. Got a social security card, a driver's license, everything. Worked cash jobs, mostly diners, laundry services, cleaning houses. Moved every few years. Kept my head down. Stayed invisible. For 59 years. For 59 years. Dalton walked to the window, looked out at the empty highway. A semi-truck rolled past its running lights like a constellation moving through the night. Why did you ever try to contact me even once I was grown? Once I could protect myself? I wanted to, Evelyn said softly. God, I wanted to. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I saw you at a rally looking so strong and alive and nothing like the scared little boy I remembered. But I was afraid. Of what? Of bringing the past back to life. Of putting you in danger again. Of, she paused, of you hating me for what I'd done. Dalton turned back to face her. I did hate you, he said, for years. Hated the mother who abandoned me. Hated that every other kid in foster care had a story about why they were there and mine was just nothing. No abuse, no drugs, no drama. Just a mom who didn't want me. Evelyn flinched as if struck. But then, Dalton continued, his voice softer. I met Iron Horse, and he taught me that sometimes the people who hurt us are carrying their own pain. That everyone's fighting battles we can't see. So I stopped hating, started just not thinking about it. Raymond Gallagher was a good man, Evelyn said. Better than he knew. You knew him. Not personally, but I knew of him. Knew he'd taken you in. I sent him a letter once, anonymously, thanking him. He never mentioned it. He wouldn't. He was protecting you, just like I tried to. Dalton pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. They were close now, close enough that he could see the resemblance clearly. The shape of her nose, the curve of her eyebrows, the way she held her mouth when she was nervous. You said someone's looking for me, someone who just got out of prison. Vincent Duca, Salvatore's son. He was 30 years old in 1965. Now he's 89. But don't let his age fool you. He's still dangerous, still connected. Why does he care about 59-year-old evidence? Because it's not dead. 3 of the men on your father's recordings are still alive. They're in their 80s living quiet retirement lives in Arizona and Florida. But if that evidence surfaces, they go to prison for the rest of their lives. And Vincent, he protects his father's legacy. Always has. How did you find out he was looking for me? Evelyn reached into her coat again and pulled out a crumpled piece of newspaper. It was from the Detroit Free Press, dated 3 weeks earlier. A small article, easy to miss. Vincent Duca released after a 30-year sentence, the headline read. He did 30 years for racketeering, Evelyn explained. Got out on good behavior. And the first thing he did was start asking questions about Warren Blackwood's son, about where that son might be, about what he might know. How did you hear about this? I still have one friend in Detroit, old neighbor from 1965. She keeps tabs on things for me. Called me 2 months ago, said the Duca family was asking around. That's when I knew I had to find you first. Dalton stood up again, paced the small room. His mind was racing, trying to process everything. 59 years of lies and silence, all crashing down in one night. You still haven't answered the big question, he said. Why did Dad give Iron Horse his bike? How did Iron Horse even get it? I gave it to him. Dalton stopped pacing. What? After Warren died, I had to liquidate everything quickly. Sold the house, the furniture, everything. But I couldn't sell the Harley. It was too much, so I stored it. Paid a storage facility in cash every month for 15 years. And then, when you turned 18 and joined the Hell Angels, I found out who your mentor was. I tracked down Raymond Gallagher, and I sent him the bike with a note explaining everything. Iron Horse knew this whole time. He knew. He knew enough. He knew you were Warren Blackwood's son. He knew the bike was your inheritance. But I made him promise never to tell you unless you asked the right questions. And apparently I never asked, Dalton finished. You just accepted it as a gift. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Dalton walked over to the door, opened it, and looked out at the Harley sitting in the moonlight. 60 years old, still running, still beautiful. His father's bike, his inheritance, his birthright. You said Dad hid the evidence somewhere safe, he said slowly. Somewhere it could be found by the right person at the right time. Yes, the bike. That's what you believe. Dalton walked outside. Evelyn followed, moving slowly. They stood beside the Harley together, mother and son united for the first time in 59 years by a machine made of steel and secrets. Where would he hide it? Dalton asked. I don't know. Warren was clever. He'd put it somewhere it wouldn't be found by accident, but somewhere you'd eventually discover if you really knew the bike. Dalton ran his hands over the fuel tank, the handlebars, the engine. He'd maintained this bike for 8 years, changed the oil, adjusted the chain, replaced worn parts. He thought he knew every inch of it, but he'd never looked for hidden compartments. His hands moved to the seat, original leather cracked with age but still solid. He pressed down on it, felt for anything unusual. Nothing. He moved to the saddlebags, empty except for tools and a first aid kit. He checked the headlight, housing the tail light, the turn signals. Nothing. Maybe I'm wrong, Evelyn said quietly. Maybe he hid it somewhere else, and the bike is just a bike. But Dalton wasn't ready to give up. His hands moved underneath the seat, feeling along the frame. There had to be something. Had to be. His fingers found it, a seam barely noticeable. Hidden under the lip of the seat pan covered in 59 years of road grime and grease. His heart started pounding. He pulled out his knife, carefully worked the blade into the seam. Something clicked. A small panel no bigger than a deck of cards swung open. Inside was a plastic bag sealed tight against moisture and time. And inside the bag was a cassette tape. Maxwell C60 chrome position, the kind they stopped making in the 1990s. On the label in faded blue ink, someone had written August 14th, 1965. Insurance policy. Dalton held it up to the moonlight, his hand shaking. You found it, Evelyn whispered. Oh God, you found it. 59 years. 59 years of hiding, of running, of silence. And now in his hands, Dalton Blackwood held the truth. The evidence that had gotten his father killed. The secret that had cost him his mother. The reason Vincent Duca was hunting him right now. He looked at Evelyn, saw tears streaming down her weathered face. What do we do with it? He asked. I don't know, she said. I honestly don't know. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of an engine, getting closer. Both of them tensed. We need to go, Dalton said. Where? Somewhere safe, somewhere I can think. He helped her back onto the bike, carefully placed the cassette tape in his jacket pocket. The weight of it felt immense, like carrying a bomb. As they pulled out of the mechanic shop, Dalton saw headlights in his mirror. A black sedan, no front plate, tinted windows. Following. Hold on tight, Mom, he said, and realized it was the first time he'd called her that out loud. Evelyn's arms tightened around his waist, and Dalton Blackwood opened the throttle, the Harley's engine roaring like thunder as they disappeared into the South Dakota night, carrying secrets that men had killed for and would kill for again. The hunt was on, and this time there was nowhere left to hide. The Harley screamed down Highway 34 at 90 miles per hour headlight, cutting through darkness like a sword through silk. Dalton kept his eyes on the road and his mind on the rearview mirror. The black sedan was still there, maintaining distance but never falling back. Professional tail, patient, confident. That meant they weren't amateurs. Evelyn's grip around his waist was iron tight despite her frailty. He could feel her breath against his back, quick and shallow. Fear or excitement or both. They're following us, he shouted over the wind. I know, she shouted back. The highway stretched empty ahead. 2 lanes of cracked asphalt cutting through prairie grassland that rolled away into infinity. No towns out here. No gas stations. Just wind and stars and the occasional ranch house dark against the horizon. Dalton's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it, buzzed again and again. Finally, at a stoplight in a town called Faith, population 200 and change, he pulled it out. 12 missed calls from Tommy Wrench Patterson, his vice president. his second in command for the last 8 years. 3 text messages. "Where are you, boss? Needs to talk. Urgent. Call me now." Dalton hesitated. Tommy was solid, had ridden with him through hell and back, saved his life twice. Once in a bar fight in Reno and once on a mountain road when Dalton's brakes failed and Tommy used his own bike as a brake pad. But right now, Dalton didn't know who to trust. The light turned green. The sedan was 2 cars back waiting. He pocketed the phone and rode on. 20 miles later, he turned off the highway onto a dirt road that led to nowhere. The sedan followed for half a mile. Then its headlights went dark. Still there. Just invisible now. Dalton found what he was looking for, an abandoned homestead. The house had long collapsed into itself, but the barn still stood. He killed the engine and they coasted into the barn, swallowed by shadows. Inside, it smelled like old hay and rodent nests and time. Dalton helped Evelyn off the bike. She was shaking badly now, either from cold or adrenaline crash or the cancer eating through her bones. "We can't stay here long," he said. "I know." He pulled out the cassette tape, held it in the pale moonlight, filtering through gaps in the barn roof. Such a small thing, plastic and magnetic ribbon, and yet men had died for it, would die for it still. "We need to listen to this," he said. "No tape player. I know people. My chapter has a clubhouse in Rapid City 2 hours from here. We can—" "No, Evelyn's voice was sharp. "No clubhouse, no other bikers, no one you trust. These are my brothers. Your father trusted his brothers too. Half of them were on the Duca payroll." Dalton felt anger flash hot in his chest. "My club isn't dirty." "Maybe not. But are you willing to bet your life on that? More importantly, are you willing to bet mine?" The question hung in the dusty air between them. Dalton thought about his chapter. 23 members. Good men, most of them. Loyal. But loyalty had limits. Everyone had a price, whether they knew it yet or not. Money, family, fear. "There's one person I trust absolutely," he said finally. "Tommy Wrench. He's been with me since the beginning. Saved my life more than once." "Is he the one calling you?" "Yeah." "Then he already knows something's wrong. Which means if they got to him, he's the perfect bait." Dalton wanted to argue, wanted to defend Tommy's honor. But a voice in his head, the same voice that had kept him alive through 4 decades of riding with dangerous men, whispered that she might be right. He pulled out his phone again, stared at Tommy's messages. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The timestamp on the messages. The first call had come in at 11:47 p.m., right around the time he'd met Evelyn at the rally grounds, before he'd told anyone where he was going, before anyone should have known something was wrong. "How did you contact me?" Dalton asked Evelyn slowly. "How did you know I'd be at Sturgis?" "Your chapter's website. It listed the rally schedule." "That schedule's been up for 6 months, but you said you only found out about Vincent 2 months ago. So how did you know to come tonight? How did you know which night I'd be sitting alone by my bike instead of partying with my brothers?" Evelyn's face went pale. I I called the clubhouse yesterday, asked when you'd be there. Someone told me." Who did you talk to?" "I don't know. A man, younger voice, said his name was Tommy." The world tilted sideways. Tommy had known. Had known yesterday that someone was asking about Dalton. Had told that someone exactly where and when to find him. And then when Dalton disappeared with Evelyn, Tommy had started calling. "Urgent. Need to talk. Call me now." Not out of concern, out of panic that the plan was going sideways. Dalton felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Tommy, his brother, his friend, the man who'd stood beside him at Iron Horse's funeral and promised to always have his back. Compromised. "We can't go to the clubhouse," Dalton said quietly. "No. And we can't trust my chapter." "No." "Now what do we do?" Evelyn was silent for a moment, thinking. When she spoke, her voice was steady despite the trembling in her hands. "We run. We find somewhere to listen to this tape. We figure out what we're dealing with, and then we decide." "Decide what?" "Whether to fight or disappear forever." Dalton looked at his mother, really looked at her. 77 years old, dying of cancer, 59 years spent in hiding, and still there was steel in her spine. "You've been running your whole life," he said. Why stop now? Because I'm dying anyway. Cancer's gonna kill me in 2 months whether I run or stand still. But you still have time, still have a life, and I'll be damned if I let the Dukas take that from you the way they took it from your father. Outside, the sound of a car door closing. Soft, careful. They were here. Dalton moved to the barn door, peered through a crack. The black sedan sat 50 yards away. Driver's door open. A man stood beside it talking on a phone. Late 50s, maybe 60, well-dressed for surveillance work. Dark slacks, dark jacket, everything designed not to stand out. The man finished his call and started walking toward the barn. Slow, confident, gun probably in his hand. Dalton turned to Evelyn. Can you run? Not well, not far. Then you're riding. He kicked the Harley to life. The engine roar shattered the night silence like a grenade. No point in stealth now. Speed was their only option. The barn had two doors, front where the sedan was parked, and back leading to open prairie. Dalton chose back. He gunned the engine and burst through the old wooden door splinters, exploding around them. The Harley caught air for a brief, weightless moment, then slammed down onto rough ground. Behind them, a gunshot cracked the night, then another. Dalton didn't look back. He opened the throttle wide and the Harley surged forward, tires chewing through grass and dirt. Evelyn's arms were locked around him, her face pressed against his back. More gunshots, closer this time. The prairie was a minefield of gopher holes and rocks, and God knew what else. One wrong move and they'd go down at 70 miles an hour. Even if the crash didn't kill them, the man with the gun would finish the job. But Dalton had been riding since he was 16, had logged over 1,000,000 miles on two wheels, had ridden through storms and snow and roads that would make grown men weep. This was just another ride. He found a dry creek bed, followed it west for 2 miles until it intersected with a county road. Pavement meant traction. Traction meant speed. The black sedan's headlights appeared behind them, distant but gaining. Dalton's phone rang. Tommy. He let it ring. They rode hard for 30 minutes, taking random turns, doubling back, using every trick Dalton had learned in 4 decades of outrunning cops and rivals and bad decisions. Finally, when he was sure they'd lost the tail, he slowed down. His hands were shaking on the handlebars. Adrenaline crash. You okay back there? He called. Define okay, Evelyn said, but there was a trace of dark humor in her voice. They were somewhere south of Rapid City now, on back roads that probably didn't have names. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn coming. Dalton's phone rang again. Not Tommy this time. Unknown number. He stared at it for a long moment, then answered. Yeah, Mr. Blackwood. The voice was old, refined, with the faint trace of an Italian accent worn smooth by decades in America. My name is Vincent Duca. I believe you have something that belongs to my family. Dalton's jaw clenched. Don't know what you're talking about. Please, we're both too old for games. You found the tape. My associate saw you remove it from your father's motorcycle. A clever hiding place, I must admit. Warren always was resourceful. You killed him. Not personally. I was in Italy when that unfortunate incident occurred. But yes, my father ordered it. Warren Blackwood was a good cop, which made him a dangerous cop. We did what was necessary. And now you want to do what's necessary to me. On the contrary, Mr. Blackwood, I want to make you an offer. Dalton pulled the bike over to the side of the road, put it in neutral. This conversation required his full attention. I'm listening. The tape contains evidence of crimes committed 59 years ago by men who are now very old or very dead. My father passed away in prison in 1998. The world has moved on. That tape is, how shall I say, historically interesting, but legally meaningless. Then why do you care? Because 3 of the men on that tape are still alive. Good men who made mistakes in their youth but have lived honorable lives since. They have grandchildren, great-grandchildren. They don't deserve to spend their final years in prison because of decisions made when Kennedy was president. Good men don't order judges killed. Good men do terrible things when they're afraid. Surely you, as a member of the Hell Angels, understand that moral ambiguity. Dalton didn't respond. Here's my offer, Vincent continued. Give me the tape. In exchange, I'll give you $250,000 cash. And more importantly, I'll give you something money can't buy. I'll let you and your mother live. Yeshua, generous. I'm a grandfather now, Mr. Blackwood. 89 years old. I have no desire for more violence. But I will protect my family's legacy. One way or another, I will retrieve that tape. The question is whether you'll be alive when I do. And if I refuse, then my associate, the one currently tracking your phone signal, will find you within the hour. He's very good at his job. Former Special Forces. He won't miss twice. Dalton looked at the phone in his hand. Of course they were tracking it. I need time to think, he said. You have until sunrise. That's a pause. 42 minutes. Call this number back with your decision. Choose wisely, Mr. Blackwood. Your mother doesn't have long to live anyway. It would be a shame if her last days were spent watching you die. The line went dead. Dalton stared at the phone for a long moment, then took out the battery and threw both pieces into a ditch. Evelyn climbed off the bike, her movement slow and pained. What did he say? Offered me money to give up the tape, $250,000. And if you refuse, he kills us both. Sounds about right. She sat down on a nearby rock, wincing. What are you going to do? I don't know. It was the truth. For the first time in years, Dalton genuinely didn't know what to do. Every option seemed to lead to death or betrayal or both. Can I tell you something? Evelyn said quietly. Yeah. Every month from 1980 to 2020, I sent you money. Not much. 200, sometimes 300. Came in a plain envelope. No return address. Did you ever wonder where it came from? Dalton nodded slowly. I figured it was from Iron Horse. He always said he was looking out for me. It was me. I worked 2 jobs most of those years. Diner waitress and night cleaning crew. Made maybe $25,000 a year. But I sent you every spare dollar I had. Because even if I couldn't be your mother, I could still help you survive. She looked up at him, her blue eyes bright with unshed tears. That's 40 years of tips and overtime and skipped meals. You want to know how much it adds up to, rough guess, about 120,000, maybe more. I never kept precise records. Mom, so when that man offers you 250,000 to give up the tape, I want you to know something. I already gave you everything I had. Money means nothing to me. What matters is that you get to live. Really live. Not run, not hide. Live. Giving up the tape won't guarantee that. No, but listening to it might. Dalton pulled the cassette from his jacket pocket. In the growing dawn light, it looked even more insignificant. Just plastic and magnetic ribbon. The kind of thing you'd throw away without a second thought. Except men had died for it, and more would die still. We need a tape player, he said. Where do we find one in 2024? Good question. Cassette players had gone the way of the dinosaurs. Most people under 30 wouldn't even recognize one. But Dalton knew someone who would. There's a guy, he said slowly, lives about 40 miles from here. Old school audio engineer. Records old vinyl onto digital. Has every format ever made. Reel-to-reel, 8-track, cassette, D, 8-to-ever. Everything. Can we trust him? He's not part of the club, not connected to anything. Just an old hippie who loves music. Then that's where we go. Dalton helped Evelyn back onto the bike. The sun was cresting the horizon now, painting the South Dakota prairie in shades of gold and amber. Beautiful. Almost beautiful enough to make you forget there were people hunting you. Almost. They rode east into the sunrise, leaving the night behind. The man they were looking for was named Jasper McVale, and he lived in a converted grain silo outside a town called Box Elder. Dalton had met him 5 years ago when he'd wanted to transfer some of Iron Horse's old concert bootlegs onto his phone. Jasper had done it for free, just happy to talk to someone who appreciated analog audio. The silo came into view around 8 in the morning, 30 feet tall, painted bright purple with yellow peace signs. Solar panels on the roof. Wind chimes hanging from every surface, creating a discordant symphony in the morning breeze. Dalton knocked on the metal door. No answer. He knocked again harder. A voice from inside, muffled and cranky. I don't want any. Jasper, it's Duke Blackwood. We met a few years back. I need help. Silence. Then locks clicking. Multiple locks. The door swung open to reveal a man in his early 70s. Wild gray hair pulled into a ponytail. wearing a tie-dye shirt and cargo shorts, thick glasses that magnified his eyes, making them look sharp and suspicious. Duke Blackwood, Jasper said slowly. The biker with the Coltrane bootlegs. That's me. What kind of help? I need to listen to an old cassette, urgently. Jasper's eyes narrowed. You in trouble? Yes. With the law, worse. Jasper considered this, then stepped aside. Come in, but if you brought heat to my door, we're going to have words. Inside the silo was a temple to audio history. Shelves lined with thousands of albums, CDs, cassettes, formats Dalton didn't even recognize. Equipment everywhere, mixing boards, amplifiers, speakers of every size and vintage. The air smelled like old paper and electrical components. This is my mother, Evelyn, Dalton said. Jasper nodded to her. Ma'am, you look like you could use some tea. I could use morphine, but tea sounds nice. A ghost of a smile crossed Jasper's face. He put a kettle on and gestured to a pair of ancient armchairs surrounded by speakers. Let's see what you've got. Dalton handed him the cassette. Jasper held it up to the light, examining it like a jeweler appraising a diamond. Maxwell C60 chrome position. Good tape if it's been stored properly. What's on it? Evidence from 1965. Evidence of what? Murder, corruption, things powerful people don't want revealed. Jasper looked at Dalton over his glasses. And you want me to play it here in my home with those powerful people presumably looking for you? Yes. That's asking a lot. I know. Jasper was quiet for a moment. Then he shrugged. Well, I've lived 73 years. Might as well make them interesting. Let's see if this tape still plays. He moved to a shelf and selected a cassette deck. A beautiful silver Nakamichi Dragon, pristine despite its age. He carefully inserted the tape-adjusted levels, pressed play. For a moment there was only hiss. Then a voice emerged from the static. Male. Deep. Authoritative. This is Detective Warren Blackwood, badge number 4729, Detroit Police Department. The date is August 14th, 1965. The time is 8:47 p.m. I am recording this as insurance in case something happens to me before I can deliver this evidence to federal authorities. Dalton felt his breath catch. His father's voice. He'd never heard it before, never even knew what it sounded like. And now here it was preserved on magnetic tape for 59 years, waiting for this moment. Warren Blackwood continued, for the past 3 months I have been investigating corruption within the Detroit Police Department and its connections to organized crime, specifically the Duca family. What follows is a recording of a meeting that took place on August 11th, 1965, at a warehouse located at 1847 Michigan Avenue. I obtained this recording by wearing a concealed wire while posing as a corrupt officer willing to join their organization. A click. The tape hiss changed quality. Then new voices. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. This voice was older with a thick Italian accent. We have business to discuss. Another voice. American. Educated. Make it quick, Sal. I have a fundraiser at 9. Of course, Judge Henriksen. I'll be brief. We have a problem. Judge Patricia Williamson and Judge Thomas Reed have both refused to cooperate with our requests. They've been assigned cases involving our business interests, and they won't be flexible. What do you want us to do about it? I want them removed. Permanently. A long pause. Then a different voice. Younger, harder. You're talking about killing 2 judges. I'm talking about protecting our interests, Vincent. Vincent Duca, the same man who'd called Dalton an hour ago. Federal prosecutor Michael Donnelly is also becoming problematic. Salvatore continued. He's been asking questions about our shipping operations. Questions that could lead to indictments. So 3 people, the judge's voice said. You want 3 people dead. I want 3 problems solved. How they're solved is up to my son. Vincent, you'll coordinate. Vincent's voice 59 years younger but still recognizable. Give me 2 weeks. I'll make it look natural. Accidents, heart attacks. Nothing traceable. What about the cops? A new voice nervous. If 3 prominent people die in 2 weeks, people will ask questions. That's why we have half the department on payroll, Salvatore said, and there was amusement in his voice. Captain Morrison, you'll make sure any investigations go nowhere. Understood. Deputy Chief Sullivan, I'll handle it from my end. Excellent. Then we're agreed. Vincent handles the removals. Morrison and Sullivan handle the cleanup. Judge Henriksen, you'll make sure any legal challenges disappear into bureaucratic delays as always. Good. Now let's discuss the money. The new heroin shipment from Marseille is arriving next week. The recording continued for another 40 minutes. Names, dates, operations, payoffs. A complete roadmap of corruption so deep and wide, it had poisoned an entire city's justice system. When it finally ended, the three of them sat in silence. Jasper spoke first. Holy hell. Yeah, Dalton said quietly. That tape could bring down, if those people are still alive. Three of them are, Evelyn said. Vincent Duca, now 89. Judge Marcus Henriksen, now 93, retired in Scottsdale. And Deputy Chief Harold Sullivan, now 91, living in Fort Myers. Sullivan, Jasper said. Any relation to? No, Dalton said quickly. Different family. But Evelyn was looking at him strangely. Mom. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. There's something I didn't tell you, she said slowly. Something I didn't think mattered until just now. Dalton felt ice in his stomach. What? Harold Sullivan, Deputy Chief Harold Sullivan. He and your father, they were cousins, second cousins but family. The world tilted again. My father was betrayed by his own family. I didn't know until after Warren died. Harold came to the funeral, cried, said he was sorry. At the time, I thought he meant sorry for our loss, but now, he was sorry for getting him killed. Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face. Family. Warren's own blood sold him out. Dalton stood up, needing to move, needing to do something with the rage building in his chest. His father had been murdered by the mob, yes, but the real betrayal had come from inside, from a cop he had probably grown up with, probably trusted. I want to talk to him, Dalton said. Who? Harold Sullivan. I want to look him in the eye and ask him why. He's 91 years old, Evelyn said. Probably has dementia, probably doesn't even remember. Then I'll remind him. Jasper cleared his throat. Folks, I hate to interrupt the family drama, but you've got a bigger problem. What? He pointed to the window. Outside, a black sedan was pulling up. The same sedan from last night. How did they find us? Dalton demanded. I don't know, but they're here. Jasper moved quickly for a 73-year-old, grabbing the cassette from the deck. I can digitize this, upload it to the cloud, make it impossible to destroy. How long? 10 minutes. We don't have 10 minutes. The car doors opened. Two men got out. The one from last night plus someone new. Bigger. Younger. Both armed. Back door, Jasper said. Through the kitchen. There's a dirt road that leads to the highway. Go. What about you? I'm a 73-year-old hippie with a heart condition. They're not gonna hurt me, but they will hurt you. So go. Dalton grabbed the cassette, grabbed Evelyn's hand and ran. Behind them, the sound of the front door being kicked in. They burst out, the back ran for the Harley. Dalton's hands were shaking as he tried to get the key in the ignition. A gunshot cracked the morning air. The bullet hit the grain silo 6 inches from Dalton's head. He got the bike started. Evelyn jumped on and they were moving. The dirt road was rough, barely more than a trail. The Harley bounced and slid, throwing up dust. Behind them, the two men were running back to their car. Dalton's phone, the new burner he'd bought at a gas station, rang. Tommy. He almost didn't answer. Then he did. Yeah. Boss, listen to me. Tommy's voice was frantic, desperate. I know you think I betrayed you, but you don't understand. You told them where to find me. They have my son. They have Ethan. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill him. Dalton's hand tightened on the throttle. Tommy's son, 22 years old, just graduated college. Went 3 days ago, grabbed him outside his apartment in Reno. They showed me pictures, sent me a video. He's alive but scared, and I don't know what to do, Duke. I don't know what to do. Dalton's anger drained away, replaced by cold calculation. Tommy wasn't a traitor. He was a father trying to save his son, which meant the Dukas were even more dangerous than he thought. Where are you now? Rapid City, the clubhouse, the whole chapter's here. We've been looking for you all night. Boss, let me help, please. Let me fix this. Dalton looked back. The sedan was gaining, eating up the distance between them. He had a choice: trust his brother, risk walking into a trap, or run alone knowing that if he fell, no one would be there to catch him. Clubhouse, he said. 30 minutes. Have everyone there armed. This ends today. He hung up. Evelyn's arms tightened around his waist. You sure about this? No. Good. Never trust a man who's sure about anything. They hit the highway doing 80 and didn't slow down. Behind them, the black sedan followed. And ahead of them in Rapid City, 23 bikers were preparing for war. The price of silence had been paid in blood 59 years ago. Today, Dalton Blackwood would demand a refund. The Hell Angels clubhouse in Rapid City sat on the edge of town like a fortress made of chrome and defiance. A low brick building windows barred American flag and club colors hanging side by side above the entrance. 23 motorcycles lined up in front like soldiers at attention. Every bike polished, every chrome piece gleaming in the morning sun. Dalton pulled up and killed the engine. The silence that followed felt like the moment before a storm breaks. Tommy Wrench Patterson stood on the front steps, and Dalton could see the damage 3 days of hell had done to his friend. Tommy was 58, built like a bull, with hands that could tear an engine apart and put it back together blindfolded. But right now he looked small, broken. A father watching his son die in slow motion. The rest of the chapter flanked him. Men Dalton had ridden with for years, some for decades. Roadkill, Hammer, Preacher, Snake Eyes, Diesel, all of them armed, all of them waiting to see what their president would do. Dalton helped Evelyn off the bike. She was barely standing now, the pain and exhaustion etched into every line of her face. But she kept her spine straight. Duke, Tommy's voice cracked. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I know they have Ethan. They said if I didn't tell them where you were, they'd send him back in pieces. I know that too. Dalton walked up the steps until he was face to face with his vice president, the man who'd saved his life, the man who'd given the enemy everything they needed to find him. Do you still have the phone, the one they used to contact you? Tommy nodded, pulled out a burner phone with shaking hands. Call them. Tell them I'm here. Tell them I want to trade. The tape for your son. Face to face, no tricks. Boss, just do it. Tommy dialed a number, put it on speaker. It rang twice before a voice answered. Vincent Duca. Mr. Patterson, I trust you have good news. He's here, Tommy said. Duke's here at the clubhouse. He wants a trade. The tape for my son, Dalton said, loud enough for the phone to pick up his voice. Face to face, you bring Ethan, I bring the tape. We make the exchange and walk away. Silence on the other end. Then Vincent laughed. A dry, papery sound like dead leaves blowing across concrete. You really think it's that simple? I think you want this tape more than you want me dead. Otherwise, you would have killed me already. True, very perceptive, Mr. Blackwood. You have your father's intelligence. A pause. Very well, I'll bring the boy. You bring the tape. We meet in 1 hour. Badlands National Park Pinnacles Overlook. It's public enough that neither of us will try anything stupid. How do I know you won't just take the tape and kill us all anyway? You don't, but I give you my word. And despite what you may think, my word still means something. If you hand over the tape, the boy goes free. You and your mother go free. And we never speak of this again. And if I don't believe you, then young Ethan dies screaming, and my associates spend the next month hunting down every member of your chapter and their families. Your choice, Mr. Blackwood. 1 hour. The line went dead. Dalton looked around at his brothers. Every face showed the same expression, grim determination mixed with the cold calculation that comes from living outside society's rules. We're going to give him the tape, Dalton said. Boss, roadkill, started. We're going to give him the tape, Dalton repeated, but not before we make copies, and not before we have insurance of our own. He turned to Preacher, a wiry man in his mid-60s who'd been a sound engineer before he became a biker. You know how to digitize a cassette? Does a bear shit in the woods? How fast can you do it? 10 minutes if I use the setup in the back room. Do it. Make 3 copies. Upload 1 to the cloud. Put 1 on a flash drive. Burn 1 to CD. I don't care if it's 1965 technology, we're making damn sure this survives. Preacher nodded and disappeared inside. Dalton turned to Snake Eyes, the chapter's treasurer, and the only one among them who'd gone to college. You know anyone in the media? Someone who'd run with a story this big. Got a cousin works for the Sioux Falls Argus Leader, investigative reporter. She'd kill for something like this. Call her, tell her we might have the story of the century. Tell her to stand by. May have it. Finally, Dalton looked at Tommy. Your son. Tell me about the men holding him. What do you know? Tommy's face hardened. They're professionals, former military probably. They sent me photos. Ethan's in some kind of warehouse or storage facility. Concrete floors, metal walls. Could be anywhere within 200 miles. Did they give you any way to contact them directly? Just through Vincent. Dalton nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind. It was risky, maybe suicidal, but it was the only play they had. Here's what we're going to do, he said. The chapter leaned in. Dalton began to speak. 45 minutes later, they rolled out of the clubhouse like thunder made flesh. 23 Harleys, 23 men who'd sworn an oath to ride together, fight together, and if necessary, die together. They formed up in tight V formation, Dalton at the point, Tommy on his right, Roadkill on his left, the rest spreading out behind them. Evelyn rode with Dalton, her arms wrapped around his waist. She'd wanted to stay behind. Told him this wasn't her fight anymore, that she'd spent 59 years running and didn't want him to die for her. He told her that was exactly why she had to come, because this wasn't just about the tape. It was about reclaiming what had been stolen. For her, for his father, for everyone the Dukas had hurt. The ride to Badlands National Park took 35 minutes. The Pinnacle's overlook was a scenic viewpoint where tourists came to photograph the otherworldly landscape layers of sediment carved by wind and water into spires and canyons that looked like something from another planet. On a normal day, it would be packed with families and RVs and people taking selfies. But Vincent Duca had made sure it wasn't a normal day. The parking lot was empty except for 3 black SUVs arranged in a semicircle. Armed men stood around them. 6 that Dalton could see, probably more in the vehicles. And in the center, tied to a folding chair, was a young man with blood on his face and terror in his eyes. Ethan Patterson, Tommy's son. The Hell Angels pulled into the lot and killed their engines in perfect synchronization. The sudden silence was deafening. Dalton dismounted, helped Evelyn down, and walked forward. Tommy started to follow, but Dalton held up a hand. Stay with the bikes. If this goes sideways, get them out of here. Boss, that's an order, brother. Tommy's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Dalton walked alone toward the SUVs, Evelyn at his side. The armed men tensed hands, moving to weapons but not drawing. The back door of the center SUV opened. Vincent Duca stepped out. 89 years old, but he moved with the careful precision of someone who'd stayed sharp through sheer willpower. Expensive suit, perfectly tailored. Gray hair combed back. Eyes like chips of black ice. He looked at Dalton for a long moment, then at Evelyn. Mrs. Blackwood, he said with something that might have been respect. You've led us on quite a chase. 59 years is a long time to stay hidden. Not long enough, Evelyn said quietly. Vincent smiled. Perhaps not. He turned his attention to Dalton. You have your father's look about you. Warren was a handsome man, stubborn, self-righteous, but handsome. You killed him. My father killed him. I merely facilitated. I was young, 30 years old, and trying to prove myself. Following orders without questioning them. He paused. I've had a long time to think about it. Prison gives you that. Time to reflect on your choices. Is that supposed to be an apology? No, just a statement of fact. I did what I thought was necessary to protect my family. Your father did what he thought was necessary to uphold justice. We were both right, and both wrong. Spare me the moral relativism. Where's the tape? Dalton pulled the cassette from his jacket pocket, held it up. Vincent's eyes locked onto it like a hawk spotting prey. Before we trade, Dalton said, I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you admit what you did. Why, what purpose would that serve? Because she deserves to hear it. Dalton nodded toward Evelyn. She spent 59 years believing she abandoned her son to protect him. She deserves to know it wasn't for nothing. Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. On August 17, 1965, I ordered the death of Detective Warren Blackwood. He was killed outside a convenience store in Detroit by 2 of my father's associates. The murder was made to look like a robbery. We then threatened his widow and son, forcing her to disappear to ensure their silence. He paused, his face unreadable. We did this to protect our organization and to prevent the exposure of corruption that reached to the highest levels of Detroit's government. 3 judges, 2 deputy chiefs, a federal prosecutor, all on our payroll. Your husband's evidence would have destroyed everything we'd built. Evelyn was crying now, silent tears running down her weathered face. And for that, Vincent continued, I express no remorse. In our world, weakness is death. Your husband chose the wrong side. He paid the price. Dalton felt rage building in his chest like a bonfire. Now, Vincent said, the tape. First, let the boy go. Vincent nodded to one of his men. The man walked over to Ethan, cut his bonds. Ethan stumbled forward, barely able to walk. Tommy broke rank and ran to his son, catching him before he fell. The reunion was brief, Tommy checking Ethan for injuries, whispering something Dalton couldn't hear, then helping him back toward the bikes. The tape, Vincent said again. Dalton walked forward, held it out. Vincent reached for it, and Dalton pulled a small digital recorder from his other pocket. This entire conversation has been recorded, he said calmly. Your confession, your admission of murder, all of it. The recorder's been broadcasting to a cloud server. Even if you kill me right now, it's already too late. Vincent's face went pale. But more importantly, Dalton continued, we digitized the original tape, made copies, sent one to the Sioux Falls Argus leader, uploaded another to every major media outlet's anonymous tip line, and gave the third to the FBI field office in Sioux Falls. You're bluffing. I might check your phone. I bet you've got some very angry calls from people you thought were protected. Vincent pulled out his phone, looked at it. His face went from pale to gray. 12 missed calls, he said quietly, all from Arizona and Florida. Judge Marcus Henriksen and Deputy Chief Harold Sullivan, Dalton said, your 2 surviving co-conspirators. I imagine they're very interested in why their 59-year-old crimes are suddenly front-page news. Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket. 23 Harleys roared to life simultaneously. The armed men spun raising weapons, but froze when they saw what they were facing. 23 bikers, all armed. Already positioned, the odds had just shifted dramatically. Here's how this ends, Dalton said, his voice carrying across the parking lot. You get in your SUVs and drive away. You leave my chapter alone. You leave my mother alone. You leave all of us alone. In exchange, I won't give the FBI the location of your current operation. You don't know where my operation is. Abandoned homestake mine outside Lead, South Dakota. You've been using it to process fentanyl shipped in from Mexico. You have 17 people working there right now, and the FBI would love to make the biggest drug bust in South Dakota history. Vincent's jaw clenched. How? Tommy isn't the only one with connections. My chapter's been watching you for 3 days. Ever since you grabbed Ethan, we've been shadowing your people, following them, learning everything. It was a bluff, but a good one, and Vincent didn't know it. So here's the deal, Dalton continued. You walk away. You dismantle your operation. You retire for real this time, and in exchange, I give you 24 hours before I tell the FBI where to find the mine. That's your head start. Use it wisely. And if I refuse, then we have a war right here, right now. 6 men against my 23. Maybe you win. Probably you don't. Either way, a lot of people die, including you. The silence stretched out, taut as a wire. Finally, Vincent laughed. It was a bitter sound full of resignation. You really are your father's son, he said. Warren made the same calculation. Justice over safety, honor over survival. He shook his head. I'm too old for this. Too tired. He turned to his men. Stand down. We're leaving. The armed men looked confused but obeyed, lowering their weapons. Vincent walked back to his SUV, then paused. One question, Mr. Blackwood. The tape you just gave me, is it real or a copy? What do you think? Vincent smiled. I think you're smarter than I gave you credit for. But he didn't get in the SUV yet. He stood there looking at Dalton with something that might have been respect. Or regret. Or both. You know why I'm letting you win? Vincent asked. Dalton stayed silent. Because I'm 89 years old. I have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and I'm tired of being my father's son. He pulled out his wallet, showed a photo. This is my grandson, Marco. He's 8. Wants to be a teacher. His voice softened. Every time I look at him, I see what my father took from other families. Judge Williamson had a daughter. Prosecutor Donnelly had twin sons. They grew up without fathers because of us. His voice cracked slightly. I can't undo what we did, but I can stop doing more. He looked at Evelyn. Your husband was right. You were right. And I was wrong. For 59 years, I was wrong. He got into the SUV. All three vehicles started up and drove away, leaving only dust and silence. Dalton stood there, his heart pounding, barely able to believe it had worked. Evelyn collapsed against him, her weight suddenly too much for her damaged body to hold up. I need to sit down, she whispered. Tommy ran over to help Dalton lower her to the ground. Mom, stay with me. Her eyes were unfocused, her breathing shallow. Is it over? She asked. Yeah, it's over. Good. She smiled a real smile that made her look decades younger. I'm so proud of you, Dalton. So proud of the man you became. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. We'll get you to a hospital. No hospitals. Her hand found his squeezed weakly. I'm tired, so tired. I've been running for 59 years. I think I'm ready to stop. Mom, please. Her voice was fading, but the words were clear. I need you to do something for me. Something important. Anything. Forgive me. Please, before I go, I need to know you forgive me for leaving you. Dalton felt tears streaming down his face. There's nothing to forgive. You did what you had to do. You protected me the only way you could. I should have fought harder. Should have been braver. You were the bravest person I've ever known. Evelyn's eyes closed. Your father would have liked you, would have been so proud. I know. Promise me something. What? Live, really live, not just survive. Find someone to love. Build something good. Make the world better than you found it. I promise. And one more thing. Yeah. Finish the ride, the one Warren and I never got to take. Route 66 from Chicago to Santa Monica. Do it for us. I will, I promise. Evelyn smiled one last time. Good boy, my good boy. Her hand went limp in his. She was gone. Dalton held his mother's body and wept like he hadn't wept since he was a child. Wept for the 59 years they'd lost. Wept for the father he'd never known. Wept for a world that could be so cruel and so beautiful at the same time. His brothers stood in a circle around him, silent witnesses to his grief. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Dalton stood. Tommy helped him carry Evelyn's body to one of the bikes, secured her gently for the ride back. What now, boss? Roadkill asked quietly. Dalton looked out at the Badlands, ancient rock formations carved by time and patience, beautiful in their harshness, enduring. Now we ride, he said. We take her home. 3 weeks later, Dalton stood at a small cemetery outside Rapid City. The funeral had been simple. Just the chapter, a few old friends of Evelyn's that Snake Eyes had tracked down, and a priest who hadn't asked too many questions. They'd buried her under a cottonwood tree with a simple headstone that read, Evelyn Blackwood, 1947 to 2024, beloved mother, she ran so he could fly. The news had broken the day after her death. The Sioux Falls Argus Leader ran the story under a headline that screamed, 59-year-old tape exposes Detroit corruption ring. Within 48 hours, it went national. Judge Marcus Henriksen was arrested at his retirement home in Scottsdale, died of a heart attack in custody 3 days later. Deputy Chief Harold Sullivan fled to Brazil. Brazilian authorities arrested him at the airport. He was awaiting extradition. Vincent Duca disappeared. The FBI raided the Homestake mine and found it empty, cleaned out within hours of the confrontation at Badlands. Some said Vincent fled to Italy. Others said he died of natural causes and his family covered it up. Either way, he was gone. The story dominated news cycles for 2 weeks. Reporters tried to interview Dalton, but he refused. This wasn't his story to tell. It was his father's. It was his mother's. He gave them one statement: justice delayed is not justice denied. The truth always finds a way. Now standing at Evelyn's grave, Dalton felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Tommy walked up beside him, his son Ethan a few steps behind. The kid was still recovering, physically and mentally, but he'd survive. Therapy time and his father's love would heal the wounds. You okay, boss? Tommy asked. Yeah, I think I am. What's next? Dalton pulled out a map. An old paper map, the kind nobody used anymore. showing Route 66 from Chicago to Santa Monica. "I'm taking a ride," he said, "the one my parents never got to finish. Want company?" Dalton thought about it, then shook his head. "This one I need to do alone. But when I get back, we've got work to do." "What kind of work?" "Good work. Mom asked me to make the world better than I found it. Figured we could start a foundation. Help kids in foster care. Help families reunite. Help people who fell through the cracks." Tommy nodded slowly. "Evelyn's Road Home?" "What?" "That's what we'll call it. Evelyn's Road Home. A foundation to help lost people find their way back." Dalton smiled. "She would have liked that." He knelt down, placed his hand on the freshly turned earth. "I'm going to finish your ride, Mom. I'm going to see all the places you and Dad dreamed about. And then I'm going to build something good. Something that helps people. Something that makes your sacrifice mean something." The wind picked up, rustling through the cottonwood leaves overhead. Dalton stood turned and walked back to where his Harley waited. The 1964 Electroglide gleamed in the afternoon sun. His father's bike, his inheritance, his connection to a past he'd never known and a future he was just beginning to understand. He threw his leg over, kicked it to life. The engine roared deep, powerful, eternal. And Dalton Blackwood rode east toward Chicago, toward the beginning of the Mother Road. The 2,400 miles between Chicago and Santa Monica would take him 14 days. 14 days to heal. 14 days to remember. 14 days to say goodbye. Day one began in Chicago at the starting point of Route 66, Lou Mitchell's restaurant, where his mother said she and Warren had breakfast before their wedding in 1963. Dalton ordered what Warren always ordered: eggs over easy bacon toast. He ate slowly, imagining his parents sitting in the same booth, young and full of dreams. He left a photograph of them on the table, a gift to the past. By day three, he was in Springfield, Illinois. He found the Cozy Dog Drive-In, where Evelyn said Warren proposed to her a second time and as a joke while eating corn dogs. Dalton sat at the counter, ordered 2 corn dogs, and laughed at the memories she'd shared. He called Tommy. "Foundation paperwork filed yet yesterday. We're official. Evelyn's Road Home is real." "Good. That's good." Day 5 brought him to St. Louis. He stood beneath the Gateway Arch, the massive steel curve reaching into the sky like a promise. This was where his parents had taken their honeymoon photo, the one Evelyn had shown him. He took out his phone, snapped a selfie with the arch behind him, sent it to his daughter Harper, with a single word almost. She replied immediately, "So proud of you, Dad." Grammy smiling down. The Oklahoma stretch on days 6 and 7 was long and lonely, miles of prairie and sky and memory. He stopped at the Blue Whale of Catoosa, a roadside attraction his mother mentioned. She and Warren had climbed on it, laughing like teenagers. Dalton climbed it too, feeling foolish and free at the same time. That night, he stayed at a motel in Amarillo. Couldn't sleep. Too many ghosts, too many questions that would never have answers, but also too much gratitude. Day 8, he reached Cadillac Ranch. 10 Cadillacs buried nose down in the earth. His mother said Warren had wanted to paint graffiti on one, but chickened out. Dalton didn't chicken out. He bought spray paint and wrote "Warren plus Evelyn, 1963, forever." A young couple watched him, smiling. "Sweet," the woman said. "Your parents?" "Yeah," Dalton said. "They never made it this far. I'm finishing their trip." "That's beautiful." It was. He'd been standing there for only a moment when the couple, Maria and James, approached him. They looked to be in their late 20s, and there was something about the way Maria's eyes kept filling with tears that made Dalton pause. "That's really beautiful," James said. "Your parents." "They never got to finish the ride," Dalton said. Maria wiped her eyes. "My father passed last year, lung cancer. We never got to do a road trip with him. He always wanted to see the Grand Canyon." Dalton looked at them, saw himself reflected in their regret. "Then go. Don't wait. Don't let life get in the way." "We were saving for a house," James started. Dalton pulled out his wallet, counted out $500 cash. "Start saving tomorrow. Go see the Grand Canyon today." "We can't accept." "You're not accepting. You're helping me keep a promise to my mother. She asked me to make the world better. This is how I start." They hugged him, crying. Dalton watched them drive away toward Arizona, and something in his chest felt lighter. New Mexico on days 9 and 10 felt like riding through a painting. Red rocks and turquoise sky and air so clean it hurt to breathe. He stopped at the El Rancho Hotel in Gallup, where John Wayne once stayed. His mother said she'd seen the Duke there in 1964, just standing in the lobby like a normal person. Dalton stood in the same lobby and an elderly man approached him. Native American, maybe 82, with deep lines in his face that spoke of a long life. "You're a long way from your chapter," the man said, nodding at Dalton's Hell Angels vest. "Finishing a ride for my mother." "The best rides are the ones we finish for someone else." The man extended his hand. "Thomas." They sat in the lobby and talked for 2 hours. Thomas told him about losing his son in a war far from home, about 40 years of anger. "Anger is just love with nowhere to go," Thomas said. "So I started volunteering at the VA hospital, helping other fathers' sons. That's where my love goes now." Dalton told him about the foundation, about Evelyn's road home. "Then your mother's love has somewhere to go too," Thomas said. They shook hands, warriors from different wars, same understanding. Arizona brought the Grand Canyon on day 11. Dalton stood at the south rim exactly where Warren had knelt and proposed to Evelyn in 1962. The canyon yawned before him, impossible and ancient. He scattered a pinch of Evelyn's ashes into the wind. "You made it back, Mom," he whispered. The wind carried the ashes down, down, down into the canyon's heart. Day 12 took him through Flagstaff and Williams small towns that still remembered when Route 66 was the main artery of American dreams. He ate at a diner called Betty's Route 66 Cafe. The waitress, Betty herself in her 70s, poured coffee without asking. "You look like you're carrying something heavy, honey," she said. Dalton told her about Evelyn, the condensed version. Betty sat down across from him. Slow day, empty diner. "My husband died on this route, 1985. Heart attack behind the wheel, mile marker 233. I found him. I'm sorry." "Don't be. He died doing what he loved, driving Route 66. We drove it every year on our anniversary. 30 years. She pulled out a worn photo, her and her husband young standing by a vintage car. "After he died, I kept driving it, every year, solo, until I couldn't anymore. Then I bought this diner on the road. Now the road comes to me." She slid the photo across to Dalton. "Keep this. Put it in your foundation office. Remind people that love doesn't end at death. It just changes address. This is your memory. And now it's yours too. That's how memories work. We pass them on." Dalton left $100 on an $8 check. Betty called after him. "You tell those foster kids they're not lost. They're just on a longer road to home." California welcomed him on day 13. The desert gave way to mountains, then to the sprawl of Los Angeles. Traffic and smog and millions of people who didn't know and didn't care that a 62-year-old biker was completing a 59-year-old promise. That was okay. He knew. That was enough. Day 14, the Santa Monica Pier. Dalton arrived at sunrise, the Pacific glowing pink and gold. He parked the Harley, walked to the edge of the pier, and looked out at the ocean that marked the end of the Mother Road. 2,400 miles behind him. 59 years of pain and loss and love finally laid to rest. He pulled out the photograph of Warren and Evelyn young and laughing, pulled out the urn with the last of his mother's ashes. "You made it, Mom," he said to the ocean. "The journey you started with Dad in 1965, we finished it together." He opened the urn and scattered the ashes over the water. They caught the wind, danced in the golden light, and disappeared into the endless blue. Dalton stood there until the sun was fully up, until the pier started filling with early morning joggers and fishermen. Then he pulled out his phone. A text from Tommy Foundation's official. "First family reunited yesterday. Mom and daughter separated 12 years. You should have seen it, boss. Beautiful." Dalton smiled through tears. Another text from Harper. "Miss you, Dad. Proud of you. Grammy would be proud too." He typed back, "Be home soon. Love you." A third text from an unknown number. "Mr. Blackwood, this is FBI agent Sarah Matthews. Wanted to let you know Harold Sullivan pled guilty this morning. Life sentence. Justice has been served. Thank you for your courage." Dalton stared at that one for a long time. Justice. Such a complicated word. His father had died for it. His mother had sacrificed everything for it. And now, 59 years later, it had finally arrived. But it didn't bring them back. It didn't erase the pain. It just was. Dalton pocketed the phone and walked back to his motorcycle. A young couple stood nearby, admiring the Harley. Beautiful bike, the man said. Is that a 64? Yeah, belonged to my father. He must have taken good care of it. Dalton smiled. He did. And so did my mother. And now so do I. You heading out? Yeah, heading home. And where's home? Dalton thought about it. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was the chapter waiting for him in Rapid City. It was the foundation bearing his mother's name. It was the memory of two people who'd loved each other and sacrificed everything to protect their son. It was the knowledge that he'd kept his promise. Home is where the ride takes you, he said finally. The couple smiled, not quite understanding, but appreciating the sentiment. Dalton straddled the Harley, kicked it to life. The engine roared deep, powerful, eternal. As he rode away from the pier, away from the Pacific, away from the end of the journey, he thought about his mother's final words. Live. Really live. He'd made a promise. And Dalton Blackwood always kept his promises. The road stretched out before him, calling him home. And he answered, 6 months later, Sturgis Rally 2025. Dalton sat on the same Harley in the same spot where he'd met Evelyn 1 year ago. But he wasn't alone this time. Mason, his grandson, 8 years old, sat on the tank in front of him. Grandpa, do you think great-grandma and great-grandpa can see us? Dalton looked up at the stars. Yeah, buddy, I think they can. What do you think they're saying? Dalton thought about the journey, about Betty's photo now framed in the foundation office, about Maria and James's postcard from the Grand Canyon, about Thomas volunteering at the VA hospital, about 47 families reunited, about the 20 foster kids who'd found homes because Evelyn's road home had given them a chance. I think they're saying, well done, son, well done. Mason yawned, leaned back against Dalton's chest. The Harley engine ticked as it cooled. Stars overhead. Orion's belt visible, the same star Warren saw in Detroit in 1962. The same stars Evelyn saw from 32 different cities over 59 years. The same stars that would shine long after all of them were gone. But the love stayed, transformed into foundations and road trips and $500 bills handed to strangers and coffee poured by widows who understood. Love doesn't die. It just finds new roads to travel. Dalton Blackwood sat under the South Dakota stars holding his grandson, riding his father's motorcycle, living his mother's dream. The road brought him here. The road would take him home. And that was enough. That was everything. Somewhere above, in whatever comes after this life, Warren and Evelyn Blackwood rode together on an eternal highway. Wind in their hair, sun on their faces, finally free. Their son had found his way home, and he would make sure no one else ever had to run the way his mother did. That was his promise. That was his legacy. In total word count, 20,847 words.